Welcome to The Other Goal, stories beyond the scoreboard, where sports meets soul.
Okay, 4-3. Wow. What a scoreline between Brentford and Manchester United. A real thriller.
Absolutely, 7 goals.
But, we're not just going to rehash the goals here. This deep dive, it's really about getting under the skin of that Premier League match from May 4th.
Yeah, we want to unpack the tactics, figure out why it played out like that, and, what it signals for both clubs going forward.
Definitely. We've looked at a bunch of stuff, match reports from ESPN, Sky, Goal.com, Supersport, fan takes like the people's person, the official sites.
Even some YouTube breakdowns, and of course what the manager said afterwards. It gives you a pretty rounded picture looking at it all.
So our mission really is to pull out the key threads for you. Like, how did Brentford actually pull off that win against such a young United side?
Right, and what's the story with Mason Mount? Good performance on paper, but what does it mean in the bigger picture of United's midfield?
And then the fallout.
Yeah.
European spots, team morale, what Amorim's thinking.
Yeah.
All that stuff beyond the 90 minutes. Basically a shortcut to the deeper story.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
So Brentford, 4 goals. That wasn't just a fluke, was it? What were they doing tactically that worked so well? They've been scoring goals, sure, but this felt clinical somehow.
Well, it really ties into how they've played all season, I think. Look at their goal stats. 42 of their 58 goals scored inside the box.
42, wow.
Yeah, and 13 of those are basically tap-ins inside the 6-yard box. They hardly ever score from range, only 3 all season.
So it's a clear strategy then. Get it wide, get it in, attack the box.
Pretty much. It's about getting into those high danger zones. And against United, you saw exactly how they did it. The sources mentioned their high press right from the off.
Yeah, they seemed to smell blood, didn't they, against that young United lineup?
Definitely. And it wasn't just chasing, it was coordinated. Like, the forwards were cutting off the easy passes into midfield, forcing those young defenders to go long or make trickier passes.
Putting them under pressure.
Exactly. And when they won it back, boom, quick passes, get players running into the penalty area. That was the pattern.
And looking at the goals themselves, crosses and set pieces seemed like a massive problem for United. That own goal, Sheza's header.
Oh, absolutely. Brentford knew that was an advantage. Their physicality, their aerial threat, it's a known strength.
And United fielding maybe their youngest ever side.
Yeah, average age just under 23. And less physical presence, less height. Amorim actually mentioned that afterwards, the height difference being a struggle.
Right.
So Brentford just kept putting balls into the mixer, didn't they? And United, well, they looked disorganized dealing with it. Lots of sources pointed that out.
But it wasn't just set pieces. Wasan's goal, that was open play, wasn't it? Looked like they just sliced through him.
It did. And that shows they're not a one-trick pony, Yes, they can bully you physically and from set plays, but that goal showed they can play through you too. Quick passing, movement.
So United's defensive woes weren't just about handling high balls then. It was more fundamental.
Seems like it. Structure, tracking runners, maybe just general communication and organization at the back.
Okay, let's flip it to United. That youngest ever Premier League starting Iniesta, obviously resting players for the Europa League was a factor.
It's a huge factor, yeah. Big semifinal second leg coming up.
But throwing such an inexperienced team, especially defensively, into the mix against a Brentford side that's, pretty relentless, was that asking for trouble?
Well, it certainly didn't help. I mean, you have to manage the squad, especially with Europe, but context is everything. They were already on a bad run, 6 games without a win, 16 league defeats this season.
A club record in the Premier League era, wasn't it?
It was. So confidence maybe wasn't sky high to begin with. Putting out kids, like the 17-year-old Chido Obi starting, It just magnified those existing vulnerabilities, especially against Brentford's direct style.
And Amorim flagging the height issue himself. That feels like an admission that maybe the selection gamble didn't pay off tactically in this specific game.
It does, yeah. It's just maybe they underestimated Brentford's aerial threat or just didn't have the personnel to counter it once they decided to rotate. You lose that experience, that physical presence.
There was also that incident with De Ligt going down just before the second goal, wasn't there? Play carried on.
Right, and United were appealing for it to stop. That kind of thing can rattle a young team even more. Feeling a sense of injustice, maybe, adds to the disruption.
And Amorim was clearly frustrated afterwards about conceding from crosses, things they expected.
Exactly. He basically said they knew it was coming but couldn't stop it. That's worrying.
Let's zoom in on Mason Mount. First goal in, over 400 days?
Yeah, only his second for United since the move from Chelsea.
Gets the goal, side foot finish from a Garnacho cross. Also gets an assist for Garnacho later on. So, on the surface, a positive day for him individually.
You could definitely frame it that way. He was playing quite high up, wasn't he, in that 3-4-2-1, sort of on the right of the attack. And the stats back it up, the goal, the assist, a couple more shots on target. He was involved in the final third.
Amorim seemed quite positive about him, too. Talked about his intelligence, getting into the box like a third midfielder, working hard.
He did. But there was that interesting little comment about sometimes having to push him back.
Right. What do you make of that? Too eager, maybe?
Maybe. Or perhaps still figuring out the exact tactical discipline needed in Amorim's system. It's hard to say for sure. But it does raise questions, doesn't it, while he contributed offensively here.
The team still lost, conceding 4.
Exactly. And where does he really fit long term? Is this advanced role the answer or just a fix for this game? United's whole midfield balance has been a talking point all season.
And then you have Louis Saha calling him the league's biggest disappointment. Injuries haven't helped, of course, but still.
Yeah, that's harsh, but it reflects the high expectations and the, well, limited overall impact so far across his 38 appearances. So, yeah, a bittersweet day for Mount. Scores, assists, but in a bad defeat, and those bigger questions about his role just won't go away.
Mount himself sounded pretty annoyed post-match too, didn't he? About the defending.
He did. Said they need to defend crosses better, need to do better, win these games. Suggests some frustration there.
Okay, so let's talk consequences. This result wasn't just about the day itself. Brentford jump up to 9th.
Yep, 52 points. Suddenly that Conference League spot, it's actually within reach for them with 3 games left. Huge for them.
Massive, but for United. Oh dear. Still 15th, 39 points. And this loss means...
a bottom half finish is mathematically guaranteed. First time in the Premier League era, I think.
Wow, that's stark. It really hammers home how poor their league season has been.
It does, and it means everything, absolutely everything, now rests on the Europa League if they want Champions League football. No other way.
And Amorim's comments after the game were pretty blunt, weren't they? Need to change this game reflecting the season.
Yeah, very honest. And worried about the Delict injury too, potentially leaving them short at the back for the crucial second leg. He didn't mince words about the standards needed either.
Telling the young players this isn't acceptable for Man United.
Right. Basically saying, learn from this because we can't have another season like it.
And that incredible admission that the team isn't actually ready to compete in the Prem and the Champions League next season, even if they win the Europa League to get there.
That was eye-opening, wasn't it? Creates this huge dilemma, as he put it. Win the trophy you desperately need. Qualify for a competition you feel unprepared for.
What does that even mean for planning?
Big questions. It points towards needing a major squad overhaul, doesn't it? He talked about preparing a squad for different competitions, and that stat about them winning fewer league games than the relegated side since he took over, that's brutal.
Just underlines the league form issues.
Yeah.
And morale-wise, you mentioned Mount's frustration.
Yeah, and contrast that with Brentford Thomas Frank talking about the belief they can win any game. Polar opposite vibes right now.
Amorim also said losing games like this is just stressful in a different way to title race pressure.
Suggests a kind of draining negativity maybe, and that observation about the team disconnecting after conceding, that points to a lack of mental strength, perhaps fragility.
So, wrapping up the future strategies then. Brentford, keep pushing for Europe, maintain momentum.
Simple as that for them, really. Keep doing what they're doing.
Man United, Europa League is everything now. Assess delete. And then, a massive summer.
Feels inevitable, based on Amorim's words. A close season overhaul, change in mentality needed, prepare for that potential Champions League challenge, even if they feel they're not quite there yet. Big, big decisions ahead.
So, summing it all up, it wasn't just a goal fest. Brentford were tactically smart, exploited United's specific weaknesses, the youth, the lack of height.
Yep. And Mount. A goal and assist, which is good for him, but it happened amidst those ongoing questions about his best role and United's midfield identity crisis. Didn't solve the bigger defensive frailties.
And the result has massive implications. Brentford dream of Europe, United are confirmed for the bottom half and facing this huge Europa League final push. Plus, Amorim's frankly startling admission about their readiness for next season.
Exactly. We tried to go beyond that crazy scoreline, give you the tactical nuggets, the player focus, and the real consequences, a deeper picture.
Definitely. And just to leave you with something to think about, Amorim's dilemma. If they do win the Europa League, get into the Champions League that he says they're not ready for, what does he do? What kind of potentially drastic traces does that force on the club this summer in terms of signings, strategy, maybe even managing expectations? It's a proper crossroads, isn't it?
You've been listening to The Other Goal, because the greatest victories don't always happen on the field.